Hey, what's going on, guys? This is BunnyMuffins. We have the meta snapshot for set 6, and I've been playing this game non-stop, and I'm going to show you guys a bunch of comps that I've really liked so far. I suspect that set 6 will be a little different compared to every other set we played in the past, and the reason are the augments, because the augments change the way you play so much, and a lot of comps that normally wouldn't work, they magically work if you get, like, 3 specific augments, which is pretty rare. It also means that a lot of the core comps you see, they're going to have a lot of substitutions you can make, because maybe you get one more trait of a certain trait, maybe you get 2, maybe you even get 3 or 4 of them. There's also going to be a lot of different positioning based on the Socialite hex, but without further ado, you could still play a bunch of comps that share a lot in common with what your final board could look like. So right now I have in the S tier only one comp, Challengers. This is the Yone and Fiora duo squad. Yone is just destroys everyone. He's played in so many different comps. You could play him in Challengers, Academy, all that. We'll get into all this later, right after I go through the summary. I will go over how to play every comp, when to roll, and hopefully how to position some of them too. Urgot is going to be the next up in the A tier, followed by Innovator, and then Arcanist. B tier, there's like an Enforcer build going around. I've seen some Korean players do it. It's a little interesting. They're the only region that kind of does this that I've seen so far. Snipers, Assassins, Reroll Academy, Mutant Malzahar, and then Socialite Sion. And then in the C tier, we have like 50 billion reroll comps. They haven't really been perfected yet, so that's why they are kind of low on the list right now. The only rerolls I would really recommend are Reroll Academy and Reroll Mutant Malzahar on certain mutant buffs, which we'll get into in just a second. So scrolling down S tier, Yone and Fiora, we have the 4 Academy, 2 Challenger, 2 Bodyguard, 2 Enchanter. We have the main champions. It's just going to be Yone and Fiora plus 6 other units. The other 6 do not really matter too much. Personally, for me, I like having 4 Academy a lot. Yuumi and Lux make a lot of sense. Do keep in mind positioning on Yuumi. You want to place her on whoever has the most items, and sometimes you could even place her on one of your tanks, such as Braum or Leona in the front line. Whenever you place her, there will show like a little sparkle on your screen, and that's who she's going to jump to right away. So you could kind of play around with that to see who you want it to hit. If you haven't noticed yet, this comp is very expensive. All 4 costs, a 3 cost, and a 5 cost. But you could play a lot of different stuff, because again, you could go deep into Challenger, you could go deep into Academy, you could just play them with random legendary units. Lots of different options there, which is why this comp is really successful. On Yone, items for him, Runon's is the best. After that, Titan's Resolve I'd say is second best. And then third item, it could literally be anything. Any damage type of item will do just fine. Quicksilver is also nice. GA is usable. And then for Fiora, I like IE and JG the best. Those are the first 2 items you see over here. Third item does not really matter. GA, I think, is really nice on her because she often like respawns and gets a cast off with a heal. Hand of Justice or any other healing item works pretty well. But one other thing to keep in mind, if you ever get like Celestial Blessing, which is a pretty common augment that you can find, you don't need that many healing items if you have this augment, because that gives built-in healing for your team. Other augments that work are obviously the Challenger and Academy augments. Socialite works if they are on the front squares, like the front 2 rows. And then Weak Spot is pretty good. Knife's Edge is great. Celestial Blessing and Binary Airdrop. Binary Airdrop is really cool. That's the one where you get an extra random item on each of your units with 2 items. And since Yone and Fiora, it's running a duo carry, you don't always get 3 items for both of them, so it works out pretty well if you have 2 on one and 2 on the other, and then you just get 2 free items from the binary airdrop augment. So on to the next comp. Oh, and just by the way, guys, all the augments I list out, there are other ones that work out, such as like the econ ones, but you just need to kind of get them early. So I don't want to say go for this scaling augment all the time, because that's just not true, because some of them only work in the early game and some only work in the late game as well. But check out the augment guide if you have not already. I'll leave a card up here in case you guys have not checked that out yet. So onto the A tier, we have Urgot. This one is a little messy. Chemtech, Bruiser, those are going to be the main 2 meats of the comp. And Urgot is going to also want Twin Shot. So Jinx is obviously the best late game option, but if you don't have her, Gangplank does just fine. Items for Urgot, Runons, and then 2 damage items are preferred. GA is alright. It's not like the best, but like the third item doesn't really matter. You just really want Runons, maybe like a Giant Slayer if it's required in the lobby. Deathblade's really good, and then like just any attack damage or attack speed item is going to work really well. I list out the core units down here, so it's Urgot, Zac, Mundo, Orianna, and Jinx. This gives you Twin Shot, Chemtech, and then it starts building out some of the enchanters that you could also add in. For this team, you could go 4 Bruiser, 6 Bruiser. I've even seen people go up to 8 Bruiser. 3, 5, 7 Chemtech all work. And just running random legendaries too. Like sometimes I see Urgot 2 with Jinx 2, Viktor 2, and then 2 other legendary units as well, like Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench works really well because he's also a Bruiser. I just don't have him listed here because there are too many things that work with this comp. But if you keep a look at the core, especially like the first 3 units, you just build off of that and you'll be fine. And then I linked a profile of a guy. He was, I think, like top 5 in Korea, and he pretty much exclusively plays Urgot, so you could check that out if you guys are curious. Augments are Chemtech, Bruiser, Twin Shot augments. Scaling helps a lot to reach the late game because they love legendaries a lot. And then Knife's Edge is going to be really good. Oh, and item holder, it could be Trundle. I forgot to write that down here. Onto the next build, we have the Innovator build. This is kind of like Innovator Flex. You use Jace as your tank. You also have your Innovator dude as like another tank in the front. And then you run 5 Innovator, add 2 any damage carries. So it could be Jhin, it could be Yone, it could be Lux. Literally any 2-star 4-cost unit will do just fine. Then you either replace your other Innovators, go down to 3 Innovators and add in more synergies for them, or you go to level 9, add in a bunch of legendaries and replace all the cheap units that you see here. Really strong build because you could just do the Innovator early game, which is by far one of the best early game starts you could get, because Ezreal gives the Innovator and Scrap buff, which are like the 2 strongest there. So you get a huge win streak, get a huge HP lead, then you just go level 9, roll down for legendaries, replace your whole team, and that's how this comp kind of works. Augments that work really well for this are Innovator, Makeshift Armor, Phony Frontline, and Built Different. If you haven't noticed a pattern yet, like Makeshift Armor is really good because you have the bear up front, which doesn't really have any items, so he kind of gets a buff automatically. And Phony Frontline is good because you don't run many tanks. It's just Jace and the bear, so anything that adds more tankiness to your team is very welcome. Lastly, you could go Built Different because the 2 damage units could have 0 synergies, and if you have Built Different, that works perfect for them. Next up, we have Arcanist Lux. Lux is the main carry, but super late game, Viktor's going to be your guy, so 2-star Viktor with the Shojin is completely insane strong. Lux, her itemization is a little weird. Oh, and just a note, guys, you only want to go 4 or 8 Arcanists. 6 doesn't really do too much if you read the trait, because your actual Arcanists don't get stronger from 4 to 6 Arcanists. So just like a random note there. If you want in the late game, you could slow roll for Vex 3-star at level 8, or you could either go level 9 to hit Viktor. Both options work just fine, but the core of the comp is really just Lux and Viktor, and anything else kind of goes. For itemizations, in stage 4 and 5, blue buff plus 2 damage items are the best things you can have on Lux. However, in the super late game, I like 3 damage items more, so you have to make 2 decisions. Do you want to go for the late game right away, or do you want to get to the late game and have more health with the blue buff, and then have a higher chance of hitting Viktor because you have higher health because you won more during stage 4 and 5. The choice is up to you. Both work, and it really just depends on the game whether you want 3 damage items on Lux or whether you want blue buff plus 2 damage items. Spirit Shojin is Viktor's best item, and then after that, just any AP will work. Anything to help him cast faster is great too. And this comp does work really well with Socialite, especially if it is in the back row. And like even like second row, if it's on the edge, Lux could still use those squares. Onto the B tiers now. So those were all the S and A tiers. I think they're just like the most consistent by far. Like all the other weird comps, like you can't go them that often. You can only go for them when you have specific augments, but all the S and A tiers you could go like pretty often. Onto the B tier, we have the Enforcer Flex comp. So I've seen some people, they do like Caitlyn 3-star and then add in for Enforcer as they level up and hit Jace, and then just play any random units that they happen to hit. And those random units could be 3-stars they got from rerolling for Caitlyn, or they could be random 4 and 5 cost units. Pretty solid comp, but it does require like a high skill cap to play, I guess. But I've seen it a lot in Korea, not so much in NA or EU. But yeah, that is Enforcer Flex. I can't really say too much about it because I just haven't seen it that often. I just saw some other players play it. Next up, we have Sniper Jhin. Jhin is kind of like the 4-cost that is left behind, kind of like Draven from last set. Every other 4-cost are in the S and A tiers. But Jhin, he's not feeling the love quite yet. They're probably going to buff him a little bit. And I feel like the reason why he's not working out as well is because he doesn't have a tank that he can work with. He is a clockwork, and none of the clockworks are tanky. He is a sniper. None of the snipers are tanky. And none of the other snipers have any utility other than Misfortune because she gives like a healing debuff. So it makes him really, really, really weird to play because you just end up having no frontline. So things that might be good is like phony frontline. Makeshift armor, not that great because if you get resistances on your like low health snipers, I don't think that helps either. But I've kind of just been running bodyguards with the Jhin and then calling it a day from there. So here we have the Leona and Braum up front. So we have Yuumi in for the Scholar, we have Janna, Orianna, and Eric for the Socialite, Enchanter, and the other Scholar, and then we have just one other Sniper for Jhin. 4 Sniper versus 2 Sniper, I feel like you just need 2 Sniper, because it's just hard to play the other units. It's like Caitlyn, Kogmaw, Tristana, none of them give any utility. I guess Tristana gives like a tiny bit of a knockback, but it's not really enough to argue for putting her in to get the sniper buff. Jhin is just like, he does enough damage on his own, you'd rather just have better frontline instead. That's why you want to hopefully get a Socialite square in the backline, and then Jhin is really good in those times. I also really like having 2 Scholar because it helps him cast faster, because I find that it's a really long time for him to get to his ability, and he just doesn't do that much damage until he gets there. One other thing I've seen tried is going for deep into clockwork traits. In fact, I had a game earlier today, I think I went like 6 clockwork and 4 sniper, and I had 0 tanks. I had like, I think a blitzcrank in the front line, and I ended up getting second that game just because the comp did that much damage, because, I mean, you have 6 clockwork and 4 sniper, that they just couldn't reach my guys. But it was a really funky game. But again, that's why this set is so great, because you could have really weird situations happen, and yeah, you're just kind of forced into it, and you kind of adjust your game for that type of augment. Onto the next build, we have Assassins. This is Shaco Syndicate or Talon and Katarina. Shaco is definitely the better version, and you could either reroll Shaco or go 2-star Shaco and then go for a level up into Akali. Akali is really, really strong. 7 Syndicate is really, really strong too in the super late game. I like doing 4 Assassin, 5 Syndicate, but you could stick down to 2 Assassins if you really need to and you don't get the augments for it, for example. And then you just kind of play random complementary units to fill out the rest of your synergies. The most important item for both of these compositions is Infinity Edge, because it's just the best assassin item by far, because you get so much crit damage. And yeah, there's just no other option for best in slot attack damage items. The other 2 items you build on all these guys don't really matter. They just have to be generic damage items for whatever type of damage they do. So Akali does mainly ability power, Shaco's physical, Talon's ability power, and Katarina is ability power. Blue buff on Cat's also really good because she gets to cast really, really often. And when I do go for the Cat reroll, I like going Academy because she just buffs up Lux, and then you can have Lux as a secondary carry if you don't hit Talon 3. To play both these comps, you want to slow roll for Shaco on level 7. If you're playing the bottom comp, which is the Katarina and Talon, those are 2-cost units, you'll want to slow roll at level 6. But you don't actually need to slow roll for either of these, because again, you could just level up instead and scale into the late game and play Akali carry, because Akali really does carry. A lot of people were saying that she sucks, but she really doesn't. If you get her 2-star with 3 items on her, she's going to be hurting just as hard as the other legendaries. For the augments, we have all the Assassin, Syndicate, Academy, Imperial ones are probably good on this comp, and then Weak Spot's really good if you're going for Shaco. Thrill the Hunt's good for both of them, because this is really good if the fights are really short. Phony Frontline's good because you don't run many tanks. Knife's Edge, of course, if you're going AD. Band of Thieves, because when you're rerolling, you hit a lot of random 3-stars, and sometimes you want more items on them with Thieves' Gloves. And then Sunfire Board I find really good on them, because again, by the time the buff wears off, the fight's already decided, so you kind of just want as much power as you can get at the beginning of the fight. Onto the next build, we have Reroll Academy. This one is kind of like a protector reroll. You go Kassadin, Graves, and Garen reroll, get them all 3-star, and then hopefully also get Katarina 3-star, because she's going to be your primary source of damage. Titan's Resolve, Bramble, tank items on Garen, Ionic Spark's good too, Sunfire Cape, all that stuff is great. But yeah, you just reroll on level 5 and then also go for Katarina at level 6. And of course you want the reroll augments for this type of build. So which are the reroll augments? Probably a lot of the econ ones, and also I think it's called like Featherweights is also really good. Onto the next build, we have Mutant Malzahar. Only play this on Synaptic Web and Voidborn. These are by far the best. You could do it on Voracious, Appetite, Metamorphosis, and Bioleeching, but really not the same type of power. But Blue Buff Malzahar is going to be the best item. You're going to reroll at level 7 because you're looking for 3 stars. If you get Cho'Gath 3, itemize him. If he's only 2-star, put all your items on Dr. Mundo. And yeah, that's pretty much the comp how it is like here. You don't have to play Urgot. It really could be any sort of Chemtech. And then super late game, you also have Kaisa as an option to throw in. Onto the next build, we have Socialite Sion. And guys, I put the core of all the comps down here. And these are like the main guys you generally use for a specific comp. And then all the other units you see on the board, they're kind of like complementary units. Next build we have up is Socialite Sion. He needs Socialite Spotlight in the front line. No ifs and buts about it, because if it's in the front, he's able to reach their back line a lot of times, and you just need that whenever you're playing Sion. Most important items on him are IE and Jeweled Gauntlet. Third item, any damage item, or like a utility item such as Hextech Gunblade will do. And yeah, he just does a ton of damage, and it's really fun to see. They nerfed it a little bit, so it's not as strong as it was before, but yeah, if you get Sion 2 with these items, let's say you have IEJG, you planned on playing Fiora, don't hit her, you hit Sion instead, and you have some spotlights, go ahead and play for the Sion carry instead. In the C tier, I'd only have the Yordle Veigar build built out right now, and it's just not that great. It's really risky to do, and you might get away with it in some games, but if you're playing against opponents of your own skill level, they probably won't let you reroll for long as Yordles require. Other rerolls are Samira, Gangplank, Tristana, Lissandra, Trundle, Kogmaw, Misfortune. There might be others that I'm missing here, but I just haven't been convinced by the results of these builds. Maybe Trundle reroll deserves a little more merit. Lissandra reroll got nerfed too hard, but that doesn't mean these units are bad. A lot of these units are used to go into a fast 9 and just stabilize during stage 4. So you really got to pay attention to that during your games. Like, don't ignore these units just because they're in the C tier, because the reality is that all units have a use at a certain point in time, and I find that that's like the great part of this set. And same with the items. I never feel I am screwed if I get like a Negatron cloak, for example. Every item feels like there is a point to them, and you just have to use your augments to make the most of them. Sometimes you need certain units, even though they're normally trash, because you have a certain augment. And that is kind of like the name of the game right now. I also have like an item quadrant down here of what I think like the relative strength is of all the items are, but it really doesn't matter because you should just focus on whatever items I recommend all up here, like in these pictures. But yeah, just to sum up, guys, like, pay attention to your augments. I'm probably going to say this in every video, but if you guys haven't already, like, go to the augment guide. It'll help you figure out like what each augment does and hopefully when to take them. I will be updating the spreadsheet because this is a link to a spreadsheet, like as soon as I get more information or if I find something new. So it will be updated throughout the whole time of the set. But yeah, Challengers S tier Yone, by far the strongest. Doesn't mean he is broken OP, but he is a level above everyone else. Urgot good. Innovators good for flexing. Arcanists, I like Lux a lot if you have the right items for it. And B tier, like these are all things that you just kind of go for if you get good starts with them. But literally every comp, kind of just go for them if you have good starts for them. But hopefully this video helped you out in your start of set 6. Obviously, first 2 days, lots of things are going to change. So next week, I expect this list to kind of like flip on its own head. Maybe they release a B patch, maybe they don't. We'll just have to wait and see. But let me know your thoughts about these comps down below. Let me know if I am missing like your favorite comp, for example. Also, let me know if there are like random texts or tips that you know for like playing Chemtech Urgot, for example. Maybe you have like a positioning trick that you have used a lot that works really well for that comp. But yeah, as per usual, guys, if you are new, go ahead and subscribe below. And if you did that already, go ahead and like the video or check out my streams on twitch.tv/BunnyMuffins, because I have started streaming again. It's been like, I think, a year and a half since I consistently streamed, and I do plan on doing it for most of this set or whenever I feel like playing. But yeah, that is gonna be it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you all later.